Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on the Islamic Feelings podcast. I am so grateful and so happy to have you join me. But for starters, before we even get into anything else, Ramadan Mubarak, I'm so happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to see another Ramadan, and I pray that it's the best one yet for all of us and for the entire Ummah at large. Ameen. So, Ramadan is definitely the time where I get a lot of new listeners. And if you're new, hey, this is kind of awkward, isn't it? Like when somebody's new, I'm like, I feel like me and my listeners have grown such like a personality together that when someone's new, I feel like they might come and they'll be like, wait, what is this girl yapping about? So, for starters, first of all, I hope that something I say benefits you and, it can be something applicable to your life. I have ran this podcast for I think 3 to 4 years, and I try my best to talk about the most, wide range of topics that my listeners request for, whether that's tawakkul, how to grow tawakkul, how to, become more firm in that, whether that's how to leave haram relationships, how to feel better after leaving them, how to feel better after leaving anything haram or that is difficult for you, how to let go of your past, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with a lot of nitty-gritty, scary stuff that is hard, that maybe you don't feel comfortable talking about, how to leave bad people. I've talked about a lot of those very like nitty-gritty like niche topics before, and of course a bunch of fun ones, which is usually like my late night talks episodes, which is like this one, which is a Ramadan Q&A. So I have a wide range of topics, from like super serious ones that are really deep that, you really got to think about, and then some that are super lighthearted. And I just hope that whatever I share and whatever episode you listen to, something in it benefits you. I like to always be transparent, that I like to share from like my own personal reflections, books that I've read, advice, knowledge that I've learned and whatnot. But I'm definitely not a professional. I'm definitely, not the most knowledgeable person out there or anything as such. Again, just something things that I've learned over my years, things that I've learned from other people, things that I've just learned growing up, and advice and personal reflections and whatnot shared with y'all. And inshallah, I hope that something I say benefits you in some way. Tonight, we're going to have another one of those more calmer episodes. So I know Ramadan's definitely the time where people feel like sometimes it's kind of information overload. And of course, in a beautiful way, where, you're going to Tarawih prayers, you are attending these different khutbahs, you're attending these different halakas and lectures, and then you're, watching YouTube series. And sometimes you're like, I just need to listen to something that is just a little bit more relaxing, but it's still interesting. And I hope that I can be that for you, because I know I sometimes look for podcasts like that where at the end of the night, I just want to wind down and hear something beneficial to the most degree. Of course, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it beneficial, because I am, no one in the doings of this. But of course, you just want to listen to something a little bit more light, something that isn't, gonna rack your brain. And I hope that tonight, inshallah, in the midst of Ramadan, whatever's going on, hopefully I can be that for you. Something that's just a little bit calming, something that can help you wind down, or maybe if you had a stressful day and you just need some advice, or you need to hear something, or a topic in the title and the description, whatever interested you, I hope that something I share benefits you in some way. So for this episode, like always, I went on Instagram. I asked my listeners to send in a bunch of different topics and questions and things they have in their mind. And oh my God, guys, y'all showed out. There were so many. I think it's going to take me episodes to answer them. But inshallah, I'm definitely going to try to cover like the top ones that kept repeating. And I hope that, you find yourself among it and you benefit with some advice. If you want to leave a topic, go on my Instagram. I post story Q&As often, and you can drop a comment in there, or you can DM me. My Instagram is Islamic Feelings with 2S, inshallah. So let's get started. So this first question was one that repeated a lot, and it said, I struggle to fast due to health issues. Any advice? This was one that repeated a lot. So I talked about this in some previous episodes that I did during Ramadan, like last couple of years, but I completely understand. I struggled with this for many years as well, and I think it's really hard, because a lot of times people give you advice and they'll be like, oh, there's so many other acts of ibadah that you can do. You can do dhikr, and you can pray tarawih, and you can read salah, and you can do this, and you can read Quran, and that's so true. But there's something in you that just feels that guilt. And it took me a lot of years. Until this point, I still do feel that guilt, but it took many years to come to a point where the guilt doesn't choke you anymore. That doesn't mean you don't care. It just comes to a point where you stop letting that guilt paralyze you. Because a lot of times when you're in Ramadan, a lot of people, it's just fasting this and fasting that, waiting for suhoor and iftaris. And, you just sometimes feel kind of like out of place. And Ramadan doesn't feel like Ramadan to you. But I feel like it's important to remember that Ramadan isn't just about abstaining from food or not eating or drinking water or whatever. It's also about sacrifice. And this was one of the things that made the biggest change for me, right? Your devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not judged by fasting alone, especially when you're in a condition where you can't do it. And I know that sometimes in Ramadan it just becomes a lot about the not eating or not drinking and then, eating and drinking, whatever. But you have to remember that a lot of it is about self-discipline, sacrifice, and spiritual growth. And I honestly did not feel like I filled that feeling within me, that guilt, that whatever, until I let go of something for the sake of Allah. Whether it was like a bad habit, a distraction, or even something permissible, but in excess, I tried my best to let it go or reduce it. And that can really help you feel spiritually engaged. This can be as simple as like reducing your screen time. It can be controlling your speech. It can be being more intentional with your worship, holding yourself to a higher standard. These small sacrifices done sincerely carry a very big weight. And of course, like you want to have sincerity, good intention, and effort in your actions in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you also have to remember that Allah sees your struggle and your longing and your sacrifices. And not just your sacrifices that are physical, but also your internal ones. And sometimes with fasting, it becomes all about the physical. And we forget the fact that in essence, you're trying to let go of things, of habits, and just controlling your nafs more. And we become so fixated on the physical. So when it comes to not fasting, of course, there's many things you can do. I bet you guys have heard some of the popular ones like read more Quran, do more dhikr, help out in your household, cook the food. That one is one I highly encourage people to do. Be a service to the people around you. There's nothing more beautiful than that, really. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees how you are serving His creation and helping them as they, of course, are also doing something that's pleasing to Him, and you are trying your best to compensate and do even more, So, of course, be a service to them, help them. Pray Taraweeh prayer, try your best to, up your sunnahs, be more mindful and whatnot. But also some things that I like to do in Ramadan as a whole, even if you can't fast or you can fast, is trying to get and be more comfortable with silence and being more comfortable not consuming things. Because in our day and age, we're constantly consuming one piece of information to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's beautiful because now we have like such a big access to Islamic knowledge. And so we're just consuming Islamic knowledge like every second as we're scrolling. And we're like, yeah, that's nice. That is nice. That's nice. Oh, yeah, that's nice too. Wow, you just heard Islamic knowledge. You have to. It's really important because this is not vague. This is not mindless knowledge. This is something that, inshallah, you want to try your best to implement in your life. And sometimes people hear so much, different knowledge, different this, different that they don't implement any of it at all because they're like, it's too overwhelming. So I always tell people like, another habit I picked up, and I really enjoy this habit. Let me tell you about this one, okay? Let me tell you. A habit I recommend to a lot of people is, let's say you're watching a Ramadan series, right? And every episode is 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. You're going to watch one episode a day, okay? You're going to watch one episode a day. You're not going to watch two, you're not going to watch three. Now, may Allah forgive me if I'm wrong for saying that. Here's why I will say that. What I noticed is, I've noticed this personally, I've noticed with other people. Whenever you're watching many, many, many lectures in a day or many, many little episodes in a day, you don't really get the time to completely reflect on it. Like sit in silence and think about it. Maybe journal about it. Think about, what did I learn today and how can I connect it? I remember one time I saw a scholar and he taught like the 99 names of Allah. And he used to say that, I teach this lecture once a week. And I want all of you guys to go home and reflect on this one name for an entire week. Reflect on every single thing I said for the entire week. Don't go ahead and learn more of the names or anything like that. He used to insist on all his students just reflecting on that one name and what he said, and then how they can connect it to their own personal life for an entire week. And we don't even sit with the things that we have learned for like 20 minutes. So it's nothing wrong with learning more knowledge and, doing all these things. I would never discourage anyone from that. And some people don't have that problem. Like they can listen to like a bunch of lectures in a row, consume it all, and, be able to implement it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all, capable of that, of course. I mean, but sometimes for some people, you're just consuming, but you're not internalizing. And you really want to do the internalization, because what's the point of listening if you're not going to act, if you're not going to internalize on it? So that was just some food for the thought, I guess. Inshallah is beneficial in some way. If you can't fast, just hang in there. Really, you're doing the best that you can, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for all the actions that you are doing and the fact that you're trying your best to go above and beyond. But take it from me, don't let that guilt of something you can't control paralyze you to a point where you end up doing nothing, because that's also not good, you know? So inshallah, this next topic is not related to Ramadan. Some of these are not. They're just like general topics that people have sent. But this one was really deep. It said, I feel like I am not anyone's first priority. So this is very deep and it's tricky. So I'll answer this to the best of my ability. I hear this really often. And honestly, to be specific, I hear it more often from women. Of course, that can just be my experience. Who knows? But this is difficult, okay? I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easier for you if you feel this way. It's a heavy feeling. It's one that can leave you questioning your worth. It's very difficult. But I want you to take a step back and reflect, okay? As humans, we can barely make ourselves our first priority, let alone expect that from others. Even more importantly, us humans sometimes struggle to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created us, our highest priority. By far others. Now, of course, we ask him to forgive us for our heedlessness and for, neglecting the fact that we should have made him our top priority at times in our life. But the truth is, no one in this world can fully prioritize you and the way you might hope. And to be honest, nor should they. And on that same note, I think it's important to remember that maybe as you go through life, you may come to realize that you probably wouldn't want them to make you their top priority either. Now, that might be controversial to some people, and I'll explain a little bit why. The weight of someone else's happiness and fulfillment isn't meant to rest entirely on another person. It's not love. There's a very big difference between emotional dependency and emotional intimacy and having, deep feelings for somebody. Wanting love and care and to be chosen and, all of that, it's natural, it's beautiful, but tying your sense of worth to whether or not someone prioritizes you is so dangerous. People will fall short. People will not be able to take care of themselves, not be able to take care of their families, and most importantly, not be able to take care of their rights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never falls short. And I feel like the more you anchor your heart in Him, the less you'll feel adrift when others don't meet your expectations, when others don't kind of meet that par you have in mind. And like I said, I want to emphasize there's nothing wrong with wanting those feelings of being loved and cared for and whatnot. But you wouldn't want anyone in this world to prioritize, you above anything else in their life. And for you to also feel like that's your source of happiness. Because then what happens one day if that person doesn't prioritize you? And this entire time you found your happiness in them prioritizing you. And in them constantly caring for you the way they did. It's a very big problem. Because then that person is going to have a difficult time going on, gauging a sense of life, gauging a sense of, purpose and what's worth it and, how to drive themselves, because they always put one person, a priority, one thing over everything else. And of course, over their ultimate purpose of being made. But you also grew into that in a way where that was your source of happiness. And that was what made you feel the most comfortable and alive. And that's what made you feel like that was the definition of happiness. And I feel like a lot of times people do tie their, definition of happiness to these types of things. And as someone that, quote, quote, chased happiness for many, many years in many different forms and many different things, I'll be the first to tell you that my chase for happiness left me more sad than I was to begin with, which is why I always tell people, don't chase happiness. Don't think of happiness as this huge, big concept and you'll never be able to attain it. First of all, it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that hands it out. He's the one that sends it down. Second, we'll never really be truly, deeply happy in this dunya. You might feel moments of happiness. You might have months, even years of happiness and contentment. But really, you learn to live. You learn to live here. You learn to survive here. And some years you learn to thrive. And that's something that I always like to tell people that, I'll be honest. My friends, they crack jokes about me and they're like, her life doesn't give you a break. And I'm like, you're kind of right. I definitely have certain years of my life where it was like a chappal was coming at me from every corner. And it was like mad rough. Like I've definitely had those years, but I definitely had years where things were really easy. And that's the nature of this dunya. But what I learned was not to fear happiness. Because sometimes when you get happy, you're living your life happy, you're content, you're good, something happens, it all comes crashing down. And then you think to yourself, I knew it, I should have never been happy in the first place. Or sometimes you'll even hear people say this. It's really popular. People sometimes say, I'm scared of being happy because I know that it's all going to come down and I'm going to end up sad. This is the life of this dunya. No one is saying that you have to live in a perpetual state of happiness. You just got to learn contentment. You learn contentment, you learn how to go through everything. I always have people that tell me, like, oh, how do you manage to be happy in this or manage to be happy in that? And it's not really that every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, the sun is shining. I'm so happy. Yay. Like, no. Some days I wake up and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. But I've learned to find contentment in the fact that my greatest problems could be the problems that someone's making dua to have, because their problems could be even greater or something that is just unimaginable. There's always a silver lining. I know people say that, some people say that there comes a point where you can't keep finding a silver lining. And I think that's something we should talk about. I know we're detouring a little bit. I know for many years in my life, it came to a point where I started to think to myself, I was like, if I go through another situation that really hurts me, that hurts my iman, that does this and does that to me, and I have to keep finding a silver lining, I will actually lose my mind, because I got so sick of finding silver linings that I resented it. I got tired of it. I'm like, am I going crazy? Like, what's going on with me? Why? Like, it came to a point where it's tiring. And I feel like if you're in that circumstance, I remember in those years, I was also depressed and I struggled with depression for like 3-ish years, 2-ish years. That was a rough time in my life, but I learned that finding the silver lining every day, people might call me crazy for it, but I wouldn't be who I was today if I didn't. So some days it's not about finding the entire silver lining of your life and making sense of everything. It's about finding the silver lining in that particular moment and trying to get yourself to the next one. Now, over time, it becomes a habit, and the days turn to months, and the months turn to years, and you learn to see the silver lining and the greater picture and the greater scheme of everything Allah has written. Trust me. And I always say this in like every one of my episodes. I thank God that the duas that I used to make desperately for the things that I wanted, for the things that I wanted to go my way, didn't come true. Now, are there things in my life that I still don't know why they happened? Of course. But have I been able to find silver linings in them? Yes. Like there's just this constant idea that all is doom and gloom sometimes, right? Like when you really fixate on your problems, it becomes a bubble and that's all you focus on. I sometimes just think about it in the bigger scheme of things. I am one little person, okay? And a very, 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 very big globe. Life is going to spin. Life is going to go on. There are some days that are for me. There's some days that are against me. There's actually, here we go. If you listen to me often, I always just like detour to a random poem. But this one's by Imam al-Shafi. It is so beautiful. So this poem says, let the days do as they please, and be optimistic when destiny decrees. Do not despair due to the events of nights past, for the events of this world were not meant to last. And be a man who in the face of fear is strong, with loyalty and forbearance adorned. And if your mistakes are many amongst the folk, and you wish to have for those mistakes a cloak, then conceal them in generosity as hens. Every fault is covered, as is said, by benevolence, and do not show weakness to an enemy, for dispersion of foes is a calamity. Guys, that's my lock screen right now. Like, yes, oh my God. And I think that is really the key to it all. Let these days go as they go. You're not going to be able to control every day. You're not going to be able to have a say on how things happen. Maybe months will go by and you won't be able to have any sense of directionality. But try your best to, in every day, find that silver lining, find that beauty, and most importantly, remember and anchor in the fact that this is Allah's will. And in front of that, once you love Allah, you have no complaints, inshallah. So I know I totally detoured, but I felt like it was kind of like a subtopic under this, so I hope it kind of made sense, inshallah. Okay, so our next question says, I find myself wasting time in Ramadan and then feel bad about it. So for this one, I'd say don't be too hard on yourself. Ramadan is a time for spiritual growth, and it's natural to sometimes feel a little distracted. But rather than focusing on guilt, use it as a reminder to realign your intentions. As I said earlier with the whole fasting thing, if you let the guilt suffocate you, it will continue to suffocate you. You'll continue to drown and you won't get anywhere, right? So try your best to, of course, realign your intentions and then, create a sacred space in your day for worship. I try my best to schedule my worship and everything I do, with my prayers in mind. So that way that's, not being left out. Of course. Set aside time for prayer, your dhikr, and just sitting down with yourself, reflecting, having those moments with yourself. Even small, intentional moments of remembrance are honestly very, very meaningful. I know sometimes people, put them on a lower level, but really just sitting there and reflecting and thinking is very, very beneficial. And of course, when you find yourself wasting time, I think sometimes it's asking yourself more about the deeper why, right? Because it could be restlessness, it could be spiritual fatigue, it can be so many reasons why you just constantly feel that need. So use those moments to kind of ask yourself your why, kind of recalibrate your heart by turning to Allah, even briefly, and just kind of thinking about why you're doing that certain action. If you can't justify, there's no reason to do it, and it's something that's wasting your time, then you stop doing it then. Like if you don't have a justification, you don't do it. Like that's one thing I've definitely been trying to do is for Ramadan when I open up social media. I'm like, why are you on it? Are you about to post something? Are you gonna do something? You're not. Close it. Sometimes you're gonna be like that, and it works out, inshallah. So, I think it's more about realigning why you keep going towards certain activities that might be wasting your time in this month. And of course, also remember you're human. Sometimes people, take on a lot at once and then they burn themselves out. And then the last 10 nights come and they're like, yeah, I have no energy for anything. Slow and steady wins the race, really. So just, progressively add on, do small things, stay consistent with them. Suggestions on what to do when you're on your cycle. Got that one a lot about how people said they felt pretty bad. They feel a lot of emotions on their cycle, especially when it's Ramadan. This is twofold. I have actually a lot to say on this. Sit down, let me tell you. So first of all, I know that a lot of like women, y'all hear like that whole thing about like, well, when on your period, like don't feel bad. You can do dhikr and read, you can do dhikr and do these different things and help your family, help your community. Very true. Very true. And you can do all those things, right? But sometimes that feeling and just your thoughts start to get the best of you. I want to first remind you of a few things. One, you're inshallah, if you pray your prayers on a usual, inshallah, you're gonna get rewarded for that. Two, try your best to increase in whatever act you can do, dhikr, whatever it is, Quran, journaling, whatever. Try your best to increase in it and put your heart towards it. One of the things that helped me in specific was having something that I just do on my period. So if that's like a certain type of journaling, or if that's reading a certain book, or if that's like, just something that's specifically to my period, to that time of the month, I notice it makes me more excited because then when it comes, I still feel like I'm spiritually engaged and doing something new. And I feel like that makes a big, big, big difference. Reserving it for when you're on your period, and then once you're off, do all your ibadah like you usually do, whatever your routine is. And then when you get on your period, of course, increase your dhikr, increase, helping people, doing salawat, whatever. But then having like something that you do in specific that is related to your period. Like I remember I had a book one time that I used to just read on my period. I don't know why I did that, but it was fun and it made me excited. I have certain like Quran journaling and like certain like books and things that I like to read while I Quran journal that I do just when I'm on my period because it's like the English translation of the Quran, so I just read it on like my computer or whatever. I think having specific things like that can kind of help you feel more aligned. The other thing I want to say, and don't hate me, guys. Don't hate me. Ladies, I feel like we should think twice before we make a decision on our period. Okay? Listen to my PSA before you get mad. I don't want to feed into that whole thing where it's like, oh, women are emotional and blah, 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 because I hate when people like run that trope because I'm like, please stop. Here's the thing. Definitely like I would say that us women feel far more emotions, like we're pretty deep. But you know how some people just like to like blame it all on like a woman's hormonal and she's like this, and I find that not right. But I know that some people generally, I mean, this is a real thing. Some people really on their period, they just don't feel like they're themselves. Like They feel like every single thought that they're having is very, very different than usual. It's very, very difficult to deal with. It's very intrusive. Um, the PMS is like out of the roof. It's very painful. There's someone who's very agitated. It's very difficult to deal with. They have very, very bad thoughts about themselves, and they get very, very emotional about themselves. And I feel like, I have some friends who struggle with that. And of course, Mouse I'll make it easy. We have an ongoing rule where we're like, we're not going to make huge life decisions when you're on your period. Like 1 week post, then you decide how much it really matters to you. Because I know a lot of people who make like really big decisions on their period. And then when they finish, they're like, bro, I don't know. Like my brain got the best of me. My emotions got the best of me. I don't even feel like me. Now I feel like I'm kind of being more rational again. Whatever. Now I know that some people will say like, oh, that's not true. Women are not like that. Women are not emotional. Of course not. Not all of them are like that. And some of them, however, they do get really emotional. It is really hard for them. And of course, there's other struggles going on in people's lives that can all contribute to a lot of different feelings, which is also why I personally have found, this is just for me, I try to always listen to my body and listen to myself and listen to my heart and my emotions and, just listen to my mind as well and just be in tune with myself. But when I notice that if I'm on my period and I get like negative thoughts about myself, or I get thoughts that I'm not doing enough, or like, those bad, guilty thoughts and things like that, I literally tell myself, oh yeah, I'm on my period. I'm not gonna listen to that. And I just like try to do something with my hands to get out of my head. That's been a common theme since I was young. Anytime I get out of my head, I do something with my hands. Like if it's like painting or just something, like I have to do something, fixing something, cleaning, like I have to do it to get out of my head. And I feel like it's kind of important, especially in this month in Ramadan, to be extra careful about the thoughts that you might get, especially in your cycle. Now, again, I know that's not everybody, it's not every woman. I'm not saying that, oh, all women are like that. No, I know personally in my life, like there are some that have openly said themselves that they just end up feeling so emotional and they get like these bad thoughts and like these bad thoughts about yourself, bad thoughts about, just in general. And that's so important, especially in this month in Ramadan, because you get these thoughts that you're a bad Muslim, you're not doing enough, you start feeling guilty. You've been reflecting on these thoughts for a week and a half, your period finishes, and now it's affecting your Ibadah because you reflected and just sat with those thoughts for so long. And a lot of those times, those thoughts are not even true. You need to learn how to filter out what is true and what is not. You need to know yourself well enough and have that proof within yourself that you know that, that's a thought. That's not true. That's not factual. And that's why, like, like I said, some women genuinely, they're like, when I'm on my period, I don't get too much in my head. Like, I try my best not to get too much in my head. And I try my best not to, like, listen to every single thought and every single feeling to such a great degree where I'm like, oh my God, I feel worthless, so I am. Like, no. You reflect back and you think, okay, it's a difficult time for me. I'm also probably feeling a lot of emotions, a lot of things going on in my life with my family, my loved ones. It's Ramadan, it's just a lot. It's a passing moment. I'm not going to let this one moment define me. I know it's a side tangent as well, but I know like a lot of women, like I said, in my personal life that struggle with it. And it's one of those things that people don't talk about, but it happens to a lot of people because those negative thoughts start to come in and then you don't know what to do with them. And even outside of Ramadan, I would say be hesitant. Always question a thought, right? Because these things sit in your brain and that's a very, very, important thing that you want to think about. Inshallah, I'll make this my last one. This one says how to deal with Ramadan being away from home. There's also some like how to deal with Ramadan is when you're a revert. So I think it's really all about trying to make it as exciting as you can for yourself, right? It's a beautiful month. It's a month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, doors of mercy, just the doors of, going back to Him are open, and you don't want to get too caught up on what you see on social media of how people are celebrating with their families and their friends and whatnot. Ramadan alone, quite the experience. Quite the experience. It's difficult. Ramadan with the family, it's also very different. It's like your entire family gets together, there's all this food being made, iftar and this and that, and then there's like the chaos after iftar, all the dishes, like, like there's all these like things, and then when you're alone, it's just you, your one plate, your one fork, your one cup, and you're like, yeah, let's get it. And you know what? That's beautiful too. I know that it's very, very hard because you definitely feel that that FOMO, I'd always recommend to go to a masjid, to go to a mosque. I know that a lot of reverts sometimes feel hesitant because it's their first time, but I always say, inshallah, those in Allah's home are, a beautiful representation of this deen and will welcome you with open arms. And if you had a bad experience, please don't take it as, like all the Muslims that are at this particular mosque or in this area like that. Like try again and try again. It's very difficult. I know I, as a Muslim, I was Muslim, like growing up, and I had some pretty bad experiences that I was like, wow, like, man, people from our community could be mean. Like, what's wrong? And it was really hard for me. And this Ramadan, actually, I started to not really care. And I was like, yeah, you might be, a little hard to deal with. I'm still going to come to this mosque because we're just, it is what it is. This is a place of community. This is a place of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't ever get in your head too much about, bad encounters. Definitely try your best to go to Tarawih as much as you can. I think that's always beautiful. I think that always helps you feel more connected. And it's really what you make of it. If you feel like you're a person who feels more in the vibe with decorating, of course, not being, expensive and not being like, like, how can we say it? It's not like feeding into that whole consumerism. But like sometimes when Ramadan comes around, people, it's like the whole complete opposite of what Ramadan's about. And it's like this mass amount of consumerism and like, well, it's not that. But if you feel like decorating helps, and that's definitely something you can do. Definitely invite your friends over. That's always helpful. Make yourself your favorite food. Do little things that make you feel excited. And finally, don't make Ramadan all about your environment, that like your surroundings in that moment, that like, oh, I don't have a family right now with me, or I'm away from home, so it's not gonna be fun. Ramadan is a time between you and Allah, always, right? It's always between you and Allah. And of course, it's beautiful to have that family, that community, know that around you. But if you don't have that, remember that it's a time between you and Allah, and it's a time that inshallah will spiritually nourish you and change you in ways that you cannot imagine. And of course, to receive all the things that you don't have, and to receive all these blessings you have in your mind that you are making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, we need to start by appreciating what He has given us, right? Even if it's that, one plate, one spoon, one fork, and that little meal you're eating, alhamdulillah, right? There's people in the world that would wish for that. And of course, even I know some people that actually they have Ramadan with their families. They're like, oh my God, I can't tolerate it. It's so hectic. Like it comes to a point where you don't even feel spiritually connected. Everyone, each to their own, each to their own. Everyone has something. I know, like I mentioned earlier, about like being on your cycle. I know some women who hate being on their cycle, who, just like it's a very bad time for them every month. And then I know some women that are like, just really wishing to have one, to have a cycle, which we don't think a lot about, but just perspective. There's every single little thing, even the things that are painful and, difficult to deal with, could be something that someone wants. And I know that it's difficult to hear that because you're just told to focus on gratitude, but that really is life. You're told to focus on gratitude. Don't focus on what you don't have. You don't have your family with you in that moment. Don't fixate yourself on the fact that I don't have my family, so nothing else will, work out. Inshallah, there's a lot of beauty written in this Ramadan, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compensates you in different ways, in different directions, in ways that you might not comprehend in the moment, but will understand later. Inshallah, this episode was beneficial. I think I was only able to get through like 4 questions, which is so bad because I have like so many. I'm so sorry, guys. I yap a lot. I need to not do that. But at the same time, like, isn't that the purpose of a podcast? To yap, like, to talk? Like, I'm not an AI, guys. I can't just give you 2 sentences and move on. And plus, I'm a girl. Like, how'd you? Yeah, this is me justifying my yapping. Okay, anyway. Inshallah, this episode was helpful to you in any way. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to allow this upcoming Ramadan to be the best for you. And these upcoming weeks to be weeks that draws you so much closer to Him. Please take care of yourself. Have a great rest of your day. Assalamu alaikum.